John Snow played an unusual role in my decision to be a public health physician and change my life for 50 years. It's an unusual story, but it begins, as most signal events do, with an innocuous set of circumstances. I was a fourth-year medical student at the University of Rochester, and married and with very little money, and then a poster arose saying that there was a prize of $200 for a thesis on the history of a subject in medicine. I had no idea what to write on, but $200 was too attractive to pass up. I was reading a book that happened to mention cholera in Rochester in 1833, and so I decided that looked like an interesting topic. I'll see what I can do. I went to various newspapers, and it was surprising how much the newspapers had. They had name and age and date of onset and geographic location, so you could really draw a map, and you could wind up even doing an epidemic curve of cholera in Rochester in 1833. The outbreak began at the end of July that year, brought in by people coming up the Erie Canal. It then had a very big effect on this little town of 12,000. They had 388 cases and 108 deaths. I plotted all this very carefully, but it became perfectly apparent there was nothing like the experience that John Snow had. This was a dirty little town along the Erie Canal. The water supply was individual, with individual pumps. They each had individual privies, which were overflowing. It was a dirty town, and spread by any number of means was possible. And there was no way to come up with anything very dramatic that would show by cutting off a water supply or such as John Snow did would have had an effect. However, I did win the prize. I think I was the only paper submitted, so it really was not, I think, a great victory. But very shortly thereafter, I was visited by somebody from the Centers for Disease Control. They were recruiting for somebody for the Epidemic Intelligence Service. I had no idea what the Communicable Disease Center was, nor the Epidemic Intelligence Service. I knew I really wasn't very interested in infectious diseases. I was interested in being a cardiologist. However, we had 2 years of uniform duty to perform at that time, and you could select which service you wanted. I decided I'd select the public health service. And so I was assigned to Atlanta, Georgia, working with a man by the name of Alex Langmuir. And Alex was a devotee of John Snow and John Snow's books, and what an important effect this had on field epidemiology. So for 12 years, I worked with Alex Langmuir as his assistant off and on. At the end of this time, it was clear that public health was far more interesting than cardiology. And for the next 50 years, I was a public health expert.